Founded as a Mormon colony in 1864, Panaca was the first permanent settlement by European Americans in southern Nevada. That first year they arrived, they built an irrigation ditch that ran from Panaca Spring to the town. A concrete pipeline followed in 1917. Both were critical to the growth and development of the town, supplying water for domestic and agricultural purposes. At just under 1,000 residents today, about 10% of Panaca's residents are water users or shareholders of this irrigation system that was built over a century ago. For years, the pipeline was leaking, and a lot of the water was not even reaching their land, and to compensate, they would need even more water. Each year, the townspeople drained Panaca Spring to enable them to crawl through the pipes to clean out the trees and other debris, a dangerous and laborious effort. The town, along with the pipeline, had reached a breaking point. The pipeline was not effective and they had exhausted all their options. 10 shareholders stepped forward and obtained Environmental Quality Incentives Program, or EQIP, contracts with NRCS to each tackle 1/10 of the total project to replace a whopping 11,300 feet of new pipeline. That's more than 2 miles of pipeline, one of NRCS Nevada's largest projects to date. It was all hands on deck. This was a community effort with people contributing what they could, either financially or by volunteering with boots on the ground to complete this mighty project, all while working around everyone's irrigation schedules to keep the water flowing.
We're in Panaca, Nevada at the Panaca Springs. It's the start of the Panaca irrigation pipeline. The pipeline's been in place since the 1900s. And prior to that, the early settlers used the spring to irrigate crops in the lower fields. And it's been a part of the agriculture since they first came here. The old pipeline was built and it was handmade concrete pipe, irregular, and jointed together with cement. And down through here, over the years, there's been a few problems with the old pipeline leaking. Every year they have to, and they're doing that right now. They've drained the spring to measure how much water is in the spring, to make sure that the water hasn't changed over the years and it's flowing the same, and they're keeping record of it. And then they clean the spring out because it's warm water, a lot of moss, a lot of trash, so they clean it out before every irrigation year. The main purpose of the pipeline now is to irrigate pastures and some cropland, some alfalfa hay ground, and as it goes through town, there's some little side users that still benefit from it. Those people with a backyard garden or their lawn, or some of them have fruit trees, and so they have a little share to water off of the pipeline, so it helps the whole community.
The line's over 100 years old, so we are having issues with the roots, because the cracks develop in the pipeline and then they start to leak, and then the trees grow and then they start invading into the pipeline. And every year we had to have a crew of kids, people, whoever would do it, crawl the pipeline and chop the roots out and drag them. And it was, not only do we feel it, I felt it was dangerous, I felt it was it's a lot of hard work for these kids. And so it's getting harder and harder to find kids that wanted to do it, wanted to actually crawl the pipeline and clean it, and just the overall deterioration of the concrete was getting to the point where we felt it was something we had to find a solution to. Finally, in Caliente, we were talking to the NRCS down there, and they were able to work out a program or a plan to help us get started and start this project and see it through. We realized when we first started to do it, it would be a large project and it would require a lot of effort from a lot of people, a lot of volunteer work, man hours go into it. It's been a long project. We do it around our water schedule, so we have to do it in the fall and the spring and when we're not irrigating. And we had a ton of challenges from the get-go, mostly because we tried to put the pipeline in while the water was running through the old pipeline, so we were going side by side, and it caused a lot of issues because of the leaks in the pipe, anywhere from swampy conditions to filling our trench up with water. And whenever we get close to the old pipeline, or got too close to the old pipeline, we would have problems with it sloughing off, and because it was just so oversaturated. So it's been a challenge from the very beginning, and we've made it all the way to the end, and we're kind of excited that we finally got that far. Going through the fields is the easiest part. Going through town was a nightmare because of all, we tried to move off of people's private property, put it in the street where we thought it should be. And that entailed putting us in proximity with sewer and water and power and the things that go with a town. But we were able to manage, negotiate, and go around all those obstacles, and we finally made it to the end, as I said, and we're just hooking up the last parts of it. Some of which you can see behind us here. But I can tell you there were leaks from one end of the pipeline to the other. You could walk through areas that were saturated with water, so you know the leaks were pretty significant leaks. And we have people that have reported back and said that their water pressure has been excellent since we've put the pipeline in, that they've noticed that they haven't had to fight the neighbor for water, which is the goal. That's what we want to do, is conserve the water and put it where it needs to go, not where it wants to go. Also, we've upgraded in doing so, we've upgraded the way the water boxes are delivering the water to them. So it's a lot cleaner, a lot easier to turn the water on and off, and those things helped out too. So. What had happened is we got 10 people to sign on as contractees and get the project rolling, but there's probably over 100 shareholders that use the water, and a lot of them are older people that can't help on the project, but yet they donate money when they can, and we've had a couple of people donate $1,000 to the project, and so they do what they can. And the rest of the able-bodied people, we try to get work out of them to help push the project along, and so far the response has been pretty positive as far as help. And a lot of people that had equipment, resources, they stepped up and helped out because they saw the benefit of the line.
My great-grandfather owned this meadow that I farm. He came to Panaca, Meadow Valley in 1867 or 8. We've been there ever since. It's been handed down, and I bought it from my father. And it's always supported our expensive hobby and raised some hay for raising a few cows and stuff. And it's always been just a gravity flow ditch, and the toughest part with the ditch is you'd wait through your water for 30 minutes after you took it at the head gate because there were so many weeds that had to get through before it got to you. We have about 20 acres down which is the delivery point for the water that we use in this new pipeline. We did a project and put a pipeline in to get the water down to our place, and it's really helped. You can control a gated pipe, so you open the gates where you want it to go and shut them where you don't want it to go, and it's really helped us in the water usage and the ability to put it where we needed it.
I irrigate about 3.5 acres with it, and because I'm raising sod, I have to have water pretty much all the time. And so when Dennis took on the project of redoing the line, I thought he was nuts because I knew how much work was involved and all the easements and everything that we had to go through. And I didn't think it was in that bad a shape until we started tearing into it. And then when we got kind of a deadline where we had to have it finished and he wanted to be shut off for a couple of weeks, I can't do that because then my sod will burn up. And I volunteered just to help do what I could do, and so I've been helping him for, the last 2 years. And what I saw from the first section was, it was really bad. I mean, the pipeline was broken and the water was running outside the pipeline, and we'd get a lot of junk in the pipe, a lot of moss. And after we hooked up the first year, it went down. And then last year when we hooked up the third phase of it, there was even less moss. And then we seem to have more water, so.
The old pipeline had a lot of friction loss in it, slowing the flow down, so what was coming in at the head wasn't getting down to the bottom. We had to put a valve in after. We got it designed and in to slow it down so it could go out the first 4 users, out their outlets.
I've seen a big notice in the volume and delivery of the water down to us since we've been putting the new main line in. That water just really flows nice and smooth, and we have very little loss, and the volume's almost scary. It's a great project.
It's going to be pretty amazing. They're going to see the full allotted water through the pipe. You know, before it was always not getting the water, but now, well, we found out why. We're going to see a change in how things are irrigated and shares, and to me, we've addressed the resource concerns of inefficient use of the irrigation water. I mean, if it's leaking out, the story when they're putting the pipe in, they started digging and almost lost a track hole because the water was leaking out so bad it was starting to cause a bog, and so they had to dig it and drain it and put it in. So we're gonna save water, in my opinion, because what's going in is going down, and they're gonna get their shares and not have to take more to make up for what they were losing. So as we talk to the users, what a blessing. They're grateful, as we say, putting conservation on the ground. And so I think it's a good thing. It's benefit those users that have been using this pipeline. Some are old families their families have been in this valley for generations, and they're still here on the land farming. And this is, you know, what their ancestors did before them. They're still seeing the benefit of it. And we've just come along and helped improve it.
It's going to be a huge blessing in the future because we won't have the like say, we won't have to crawl the pipe anymore. It'll be a sealed thing. And a water share used to be 150 gallons a minute every 8 days for 12 hours. They've reduced the amount of water twice because they kept losing water. So we were down to 130 gallons a minute for that same amount of time. And now we'll be able to jump it back up to the old numbers. When you're watering 4 or 5 acres in your backyard for your pasture, it really adds up. I'm grateful that we had so much help. I really am. We've had people that have donated, you know, a week of their time just to put this project together. So we're extremely grateful to them. And I'm grateful to the NRCS for giving us the resources to put this together, because it wouldn't have happened without them.